Live in the nowhere that you came from, even though you have an address here. So that's a Rumi quote. I'm going to come into all the participants and mute everybody so that we can have 20 minutes to regather ourselves and see who shows up. Close your eyes, take a breath. Well, that was a wild and woolly beginning. Who knows what happened? And it segues perfectly into what I'd like to talk about tonight. Um, the curveballs that show up in our life, and it's very exciting and distressing, and we want to fix it. So it's cool to have that experience right before we dive into this discussion, firsthand experience. So as we go through our days, by the way, my name is Thia, and welcome to Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. I'm glad a few of you squeaked through the secret doorway to get in. As we go through our days, whether we're aware or unaware, we moved through a constant and rapidly changing flow of states. In the teachings, these states are simply categorized as pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So we just experienced that. Tonight, I want to look at the so-called neutral states. Wait, you may say, we're studying neutral tonight? Yes, we are, and here's why. We're so accustomed to feeding the me machine with a plethora of our preferences, desires, opinions, and choices. This habit is so ingrained with us that it's unusual and even uncomfortable to sit sometimes with a neutral mind place. In neutral, without the usual cravings and avoidances, we lose the stimulation of push-pull that we're so used to. And without that stimulation, we often, or we can lose our sense of self, the things that define us. I like this, I don't like that. And while this may not be a great feeling initially, as that falls away, it is good news, learning to sit with the neutral. And the experience that I just had of wanting the web link to work, clinging to that, and the aversion to the fact that it was not working, and despite our attempts to fix it, it was still glitchy. And then sliding into the breath and landing in a place where I could just breathe and rest for 20 minutes was a real medicine, perfect balm. When the mind is free of grasping and pushing away, we're free then to explore a gateway to some wholesome emptiness. When we sit and neutral awareness comes up, almost immediately the ego tends to say, "Excuse me, but there's nothing going on here. What are we doing? Aren't we wasting time?" Opening to neutrality doesn't make much sense to the part of us whose only job is PR, the part of us that creates and maintains a successful self-image. One of the aspirations of the meditator is to be able to see and understand the workings of the mind so that we can see the useful construction of self, but more importantly, so that we can also get a glimpse of seeing through that self. Sitting with neutral mind states, far from being boring or non-productive, can help us see things from a different perspective, the perspective of non-self. It's natural to be able to notice, for me, pleasant and unpleasant states throughout the day, but neutral states often go unnoticed. Neutrality is willfully ended as I allow my thoughts to spool out into a story or make a movement to leave the cushion or reach for my phone or simply lose track of the quiet openness of my breath. Neutral is a common and ordinary bandwidth of being that offers a distinct nuance to us. Neutral points us to a natural state of shunyata, the Zen word for emptiness. It encourages dispassion and letting go. So this is such an important distinction to students of the Buddha's teachings because letting go is something that we're instructed in over and over. Willingness to let go is the key to gaining control over cravings for certain pleasant circumstances and the avoidance of other unpleasant circumstances and learning to dwell in a more equanimous state. There's a section in the Majjhima Nikaya where someone approaches the Buddha and asks him if he can summarize the teachings in a single phrase. And this happened more than once. In this particular instance, the Buddha answers, "Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine." And I'll interject, not pleasant, not unpleasant, and not even neutral. So once we get past the idea of neutral being boring or a sense of nothing is happening, neutral moments can offer a sense of respite, however brief or prolonged, from the all too familiar tethers of selfing and the time-consuming efforts to polish and refine a shiny self-image. From this fresh perspective of neutral, far from being boring or bland, we can open up to a groundless sense of ease, a sense of wonder, and begin to see the nuance in neutral. I think this is part of what the Buddha is referring to in his teachings when he uses the term dispassionate. I think that makes some of us uncomfortable because we always hear, go for your passion, live with passion, be passionate. But dwelling in this feeling tone means dwelling in the neutral feeling tone means being unattached to an outcome, experiencing a refuge from the relentless opinions flying around in the world and in our own minds. Neutral is non-discriminatory. It's naturally calm, and it's an open state of mind, quite powerful. What neutral is not is zoned out or distracted, disinterested or bored. These are false lookalikes to neutral, and they generate desire, aversion, sleepiness. They're distractions. This is where doubt can show up in the neutral state or in these lookalike states, and we can skillfully examine our mind to see if we're entertaining thoughts that are feeding us a storyline, or are we staying with arising states, each one as they present themselves, the never-ending flow. Skillful neutral states invite a quiet engagement in simply being, a dwelling based in awareness and acceptance. Because neutral feeling tones are subtle, they can be hard to notice, much less appreciate. But they're there all the time, usually being covered over with movements, with cravings and distractions. There's a saying that Joseph Goldstein uses a lot from one of his Burmese teachers. He says, movement masks dukkha. Goldstein says, look at that stream of dukkha. We're hungry, so we eat. We're tired, we need to sleep. The body is full, we must empty our bowels. We're lonely, we need to seek connection. The body hurts, we take some pills. We're bored. We seek entertainment each day over and over and over. All of these things. Movement is masking the dukkha of simply being a human. The first thing that we're taught as meditators is the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. And in doing so, we try to understand the obstacles that we label as dukkha on the path, the pain and the boredom and the doubt. Working with these seems like a Herculean task until we get a glimpse of the empty, aware nature of the mind. And all of a sudden, neutral seems like a wonderful place to be. Then resting in non-clinging begins to feel like resting in our true nature. We have access to that non-judgmental awareness that we hear about so much. Putting down all this dukkha, even for a short while, feels like laying down a heavy burden. So let's investigate neutral just a little more deeply and then look at an interesting passage from the teachings of the Buddha. There are varying shades or tints within these three categories of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And particularly in the neutral states, purely neutral states are rare. Neutrality is usually tinted with some pleasantness or some unpleasantness in varying degrees. And that's not a problem. Our only task is to notice. So tonight I'd like to offer a clue about noticing these neutral states. One thing to notice when I'm in neutral is a sense of ease. I'm not striving so much. Another I notice is a lack of constriction, kind of open to whatever is going to happen next. And finally, a biggie is not being attached to the outcome. Joseph Goldstein says, life is empty phenomena rolling on. And this feeling kind of comes up when you're in neutral. Empty phenomena rolling on. The more we delve into the middle states, the so-called neutral states, the more deeply we come to rest between the play of opposites. Then neutral can feel like a portal directly into equanimity. With pleasant states, we have the probability of desire and craving for continuation of pleasant. With unpleasant states, the likelihood of aversion is high. We're conditioned this way, and it's simply a habit. With neutral, just day-to-day occurrences like walking, getting into the car, turning off the light before we go to sleep. We largely ignore these moments. The mindfulness that results from regular, dedicated meditation practice can light up even these moments from within so that we notice them and see them. Now, I don't live here with all my moments lit from within, but I do taste this state from time to time, and probably many of you do, especially if you have a regular practice. If you don't recognize this nuance of neutral states yet, don't despair. It's already there all around you and in you. And when you stop looking is when it's most likely to show up. This neutrality and the luminosity of it can definitely be found when we're meditating. One of the challenges of meditating, especially when we first begin, is that we feel like nothing much is happening. We're learning to focus the mind to simply pay attention. To this end, we're assigned, guess what? A neutral subject to attend to. And how long do we manage to stay with the neutral subject of the breath? A minute or two at best. But noticing that we've lost the attention to the breath, this is the training and awareness. So just noticing means the training is working right away, inviting us back to that neutral place. Once we've had a little more experience with training the mind through regular meditation, we may begin to be aware of more detail with the breath, its complexity, and the sheer wonder of living in a body that automatically and elegantly breathes itself. The mundane becomes special. So this neutral place where it may appear that nothing is happening is actually full of happening. And the so-called neutral place becomes one of our main dwelling places as students of the Buddha's teachings. This is the middle way. This is balanced abiding. This is a state of calm attentiveness in which one's actions or lack of action are guided by intuition more than thinking or conscious effort. Sometimes Ajahn Chah described this by saying, there is neither going forward nor going backward, nor standing still. He called it stillness flowing and wrote a huge book with this title. Epicurus says it's not what we have, but what we enjoy that constitutes abundance. So can we enjoy ordinary states and not be attached to them? And do they then cease to be ordinary if we appreciate them? I don't have an answer for that. Maybe we can circle back to that. But I can attest to the alchemy of the ordinary becoming sacred with attention and with acceptance and with appreciation. If we're content with things the way they are, simply dwelling in arising states, skillfully noticing, not pushing away, not grasping, we're in an excellent position to taste the state of emptiness. When we experience emptiness without fear or grasping, it is said that awakening is close at hand. Allen Ginsberg said, "It is the quality of attention that makes things sacred." If that's true, we can experience all things as sacred. Sacred simply means being set apart for a special purpose. So can ordinary neutral moments become sacred? Is this, in fact, the Buddhist middle way? In an interview with Krista Tippett, the beloved poet Mary Oliver spoke of ordinariness in daily life, saying, quiet, confident ordinariness is the surety of the world. Ordinariness makes the world go round. And finally, we have an illuminating example from the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length teachings of the Buddha. This is called the shorter set of questions and answers. And I love this because this is Dhammadina. This is a woman teacher, one of the Buddha's sharpest female disciples. In this discourse, questions are being put to her by a layman, Visakha, who, according to the commentary, was her former husband. And they're both on the path, and they're both in early stages of enlightenment. So it's an interesting conversation. He comes to her, bows down, sits down, and asks, what lies on the other side of a pleasant feeling? Passion, she answers. What lies on the other side of a painful feeling? Resistance is her answer. So we see craving and aversion right away. What lies on the other side of neither pleasant nor painful feeling? Here's neutral showing up. Ignorance, she answers. He says, what lies on the other side of ignorance? Clear knowing. What lies on the other side of clear knowing? Release. And on the other side of release, unbinding. He presses on, what lies on the other side of unbinding? She looks at him and says, you've gone too far, Visakha. You cannot keep holding on. Know that the holy life gains a footing in unbinding, culminates in unbinding, and has unbinding as its final end. She directs him to the Buddha, who backs her up and says that she's correct. And that's the end of that. Here is a path clearly outlined by this woman, Dhammadina, and corroborated by the Buddha, of the possibility of neutral states tracing through ignorance to clear knowing, connecting the dots to release, and then connecting the dots to culminating in awakening or unbinding. This is so promising for us. In closing, let's honor the neutral feeling states as a simple and safe haven for our awareness practice to put down strong roots and travel the pathway outlined by the Buddha and others that have traveled before us all the way to awakening. So may we all go through the unassuming doorway of neutral and discover the nuances waiting there for us. Thank you for your ears, for your attention. Looks like a lot more people slipped through the secret door somehow, so that's good. As is our usual custom, we can have feedback or questions. You can chat or unmute. And while you chew on your questions or decide if you have something to say, I'll move into our announcements. So we are back to virtual only for the larger in-person meetings. Some of our smaller gatherings still may be in person, and you'll hear about those when I move through the announcements. I think we've been really flexible and quite nimble considering everything that has happened in the past year and a half. As a Sangha, I'm impressed with us. September 2nd, our book discussion group begins, and it's Unbinding by Kathleen Dowling Singh. You can contact Joy through the website listing for the book group. September 12th at 10 a.m., and this is a Sunday. It's usually a Saturday, but this is a Sunday at 10 a.m. We'll have a pop-up meditation at Boyce Park. We'll distance and wear masks and be outside. September 18th, we're scheduled to have a picnic, and that's to be determined. We'll see. I'll keep everybody posted. September 21st begins an online class with Debbie, Beyond the Basics, and the topic is Samadhi. So there's still plenty of time to jump into that. September 22nd, we'll have a Dharma Leader panel, and that is, for those of you who are new, that's just an ask whatever you want sort of thing. You can email your questions to Joy Libeth via the website, or I think that's the best way, don't you, Joy? October 5th, we've got the Basics of Insight Meditation, a class. If you've never taken the basics, this is a great 4-series class that you can jump into, and Larry DeWalt will be leading that. And this is actually a prerequisite for the Beyond the Basics classes. And so it's a good refresher too. If you have taken it and it's been several years, it's a wonderful class. So the last thing on our list is November the 6th. We have a day-long retreat coming up. And the title of that is The River of Life. This is about impermanence, dying, and the other shore. So really compelling topic, led by Joy and Larry. There's more about this online. I think it should be posted. We just are working on posting that. It may or may not be up, so check back if you need to. The Tuesday sits continue on Zoom. The instruction sessions continue at 7 p.m. on the last Wednesday. The practice discussion is the first Wednesday at 6:45. And again, a deep bow to the dedicated volunteers that scurry around every week, making so much of this happen. It's kind of fun, but it's also a little nerve-wracking sometimes. But it's a great group, and we have a search for an additional member for the finance team. Go to the volunteer section online if you want to find out more about that opportunity. And in our tradition, these teachings are always offered freely. We trust that those who find them useful will support the effort to share them. And this is called Dana. And so you can go online and support this effort if you'd like to contribute to these continuing. So we have one comment, and it's a nice, encouraging comment about staying in the neutral. And so to close us out tonight, make yourself comfortable. Let's give ourselves some metta. So this is our practice of loving kindness meditation that is in the tradition of insight. Beginning with yourself, may I see the sacred in the ordinary and experience ease. May I move through ignorance into clear knowing. And may I know release from suffering. Begin to turn your well-wishing outward to a person or persons of your choosing, folks that you would like to benefit. May you see the sacred in the ordinary and experience ease in your life. May you move through ignorance into clear knowing. May you be released from suffering. Open your well-wishing further to include even those that you struggle with. May you see the sacred in the ordinary and experience ease. May you move through ignorance to clear knowing. May you know release from suffering. And to close, may all beings see the sacred in the ordinary, experiencing ease in their life. May all beings move through ignorance to clear knowing. May all beings be released from suffering.